If you're an old person, you will pretty instantly be able to fill in the blank on this Burt Bacharach song from the late 60s. What the world needs now is a better political system. No. More jobs. Well, we need that, but that's not what the world needs now is love, sweet love. I think you can point to any time in history, and Bert hit it on the head, right? The world will always need love. And newsflash, that's part of why God put his spirit in us, why he planned to plant us and then planted us on planet Earth. And even before that, why he created all that there is so that love could happen, could be present. And he intends for that to happen through us. That's John's message. You can boil everything down, and it comes down to the world needs love. And God's children, his family, his people, that's our mission, is to love. And he says it in lots of different ways. He says it from the positive and from the negative. And we looked at the negative, and this is 1 John 3:15. Anyone who hates his brother or sister is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life residing in him. Well, that's about as negative as I can imagine. That's the extreme side, right? So, and then he goes on in verse 16. This is how we know what love is. Okay. We're coming down to a bottom line here, and I kind of am a fan of bottom lines. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. Wow. I mean, we jumped right from warm, fuzzy feelings to that's a pretty extreme example of what love is. That Jesus laid down his life for us. Let's look at a couple of things here. And I want to start with this idea that Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. I grew up in a church tradition where we shared communion every Sunday, every service on Sunday. We shared the bread and the juice. God forbid that we would use wine. It was juice. Why? Well, we were observing what both Jesus and the Apostle Paul, it wasn't just a suggestion. It was I'm going to call it a soft command. Jesus said, as often as you do this, when he instituted the Lord's Supper on the night that he was betrayed, and he used bread from the Passover meal, which was probably matzah bread, right? Like a matzah cracker. And wine, which, by the way, probably really was fermented alcoholic wine. He said that the bread was his body and the wine was his blood. The body was broken for us. The blood was poured out for us. Now, since the time I was a boy, and all of this, became just a natural part of the fabric of life at church, I've heard lots of different prayers offered as we prepare to share in the communion, and lots of them use this phrase, well, this is the blood that you spilled for us. I kind of take exception with that. No, let me just tell you, I really take exception. Here's why. A spill is an accident, right? See, Jesus didn't accidentally spill his blood. He poured it out intentionally. What brought me here this morning today is what John says. Jesus Christ laid down his life. He said, nobody takes my life from me. I lay it down. See, if Jesus didn't want to die, he wouldn't have died. Can I just remind us that this is the one who spoke the world into existence, who holds it together by the power of his word. Don't you think if he didn't want to die, he wouldn't have had to die? Why did he? He didn't oops his way to the cross. The Gospels make it clear he set his face to go to the cross. He laid down his life. This was an act of intention. And I think I have to be careful because my tendency is to say, well, that was his entire mission. That's why he came to earth, was to die. Well, I think it was the culmination, part A, for his coming to earth. He did many other things. He exposed the nature of God. He healed. He performed signs pointing from this moment he was in to God as Father. He gave us an example. That's all part of the mission. It culminated when he climbed onto the cross, when he laid down his life, part A, for payment, to pay for what I did and what I will do, and for all the sin of all people of all time. What was part B? Well, part B in my mind was when he rose from the grave, proving that the payment had been made. And then, in my opinion, part C is just before he ascended back into heaven, he commissioned us. Well, it was the apostles, and the one that comes to my mind early and instantly, because it's been drilled into me from the time I was in grade school, is Matthew 28:19. Go, therefore. Actually, 28:18 has to be put in here. All authority has been given unto me on heaven and in earth. Therefore, go and make disciples. Go into the whole world, make disciples, teaching them to baptizing them and teaching them to observe everything I've commanded you. And I'll be with you until the end. Okay. He then, part C is, he commissioned us to continue his mission of redemption. I don't redeem anybody, but I get to draw them toward the one who has redeemed. So, okay, this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ, the only man who would never have had to die had he not chosen to, laid down his life for us. That's extreme. He did many other loving things. He raised a widow's son from the dead. He healed a woman who had for many years been suffering from bleeding. She touched the hem of his garment and she was instantly healed. He raised a little girl, a 12-year-old girl from the dead. He did tons of loving, compassionate things. But this those are really the shadow that is cast by his one climactic, dramatic, most meaningful act of love, and that was when he laid down his life for us. I grew up hearing that the Catholics had it all wrong because their crucifix has Jesus still on the cross. And we have a cross that Jesus is no longer on. I didn't know any better, so I thought, well, that's probably true. I now look at it and think, okay, in one sense of the word, truly doesn't matter whether you got Jesus on the cross or not. It's just a symbol. And what does it point to? Well, it points to the fact that Jesus laid down his life for us. And it was no small thing. I occasionally, in my counseling, I encounter husbands and wives. I should back up. Pretty often encounter husbands and wives that are very conflicted with each other. They don't really like each other very much, but honestly, they would take a bullet for one another. They really would. If it came to it, if their house was invaded, they would stand in between the invader and their spouse as protection. But they really struggle to just be kind, just to be civil with that person that they'd probably take a bullet for. You ever experienced that in your own life or observed it in others? But here we have Jesus who would and did lay down his life for us. Okay, I bounced on that pretty hard and probably really longer and more than I needed to. You get it. And then, as if that's not, that is as dramatic and full on. I can't think of any example from Jesus' life that is bigger, sturdier, more substantial than he laid down his life for us willingly, voluntarily. But then John goes on. All right, we know, this is how we know what love is. Jesus laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. Huh? Whoa. I've only got, I get to die once and that's it, right? So, here, the point I think is more simple than we want to make it, than I want to make it sometimes. First of all, Jesus is our supreme example. And the example of him willingly giving up his life, laying down his life, is our example. This is to be the pattern of our lives, that we willingly surrender for the benefit of others. John goes on and breaks it out in verses 17 and following, and we'll get to that next time. But one of the things I want to say is we ought to let's just unpack a teeny bit. We ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. This is not easy because, let's be honest, some of our brothers and sisters are cantankerous. and there are times they don't really deserve anybody laying down their life for them, right? If they clean their act up a little bit and get a little less cantankerous, a little less argumentative, and frankly, if they'd be a little more like me, see, those conditions don't apply. The point is, in this family, we relate to one another on the basis of a love that says, if I can help you, I will. and I will go when necessary to extreme measures to do this. Wow. Okay, that can be distorted. It can be misapplied. It can be misunderstood. And it is often. But it stands as a truth. We'll unpack it some more next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.